we have pacified leadership, and we've looked down on competition. It's the weird cultural phenomenon that's taking place right now. And the reality is we need to encourage our boys, our girls, our young men, our young women to understand, like, we teach them identity. We teach them to be a leader. But at the same time, there's a lot of messages saying, well, be careful and don't be pushy. It's like, no, step into your rightful place. And when you have a mission, when you have a dream and a goal, don't back down. Have conviction and don't give that up for anything. Welcome to the 5-Star Life Show. I'm your host, Coach Seth, and I am joined in studio with the one and only Brae, our 5-Star Life Director of Basketball Operations.
My introduction by you gets better every time.
You know, we
keep taking steps up.
It's 5-star. You know, it's all about moving forward, Brae.
Excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, you're kicking off fall travel basketball tonight, right?
Today's a great day. I'm excited. I'm finalizing my practice plan right after the radio show here, and excited to get started with our winter AAU teams this winter. I'm coaching an 8th grade team and excited to meet some new parents and coach some new faces and kick off our winter session.
We'll have to chat about that a little bit. Today's show is going to be a little bit interesting, a little bit different, because we're going to ask each other some questions. So I just told Brae, write down a handful of questions that you have for Coach Seth, just about anything. It can be life, raising kids, marriage, leadership, whatever. And then I've got some questions for him as well. So stay tuned. If you just tuned in for the first time, you're like, what is this 5-Star Life Show all about? Really want to encourage you to go to our website. It's 5starlife.org. It's the word 5 or the number 5, the word star, the word life.org, all spelled out. Also, thanks for tuning in and listening to this show. But just a reminder, you can actually listen to this, on 95.3 MNC on radio. You can listen to this anywhere that podcasts are streamed, any platform. You can also, new feature, we love this, you can actually tune in to YouTube at the 5-Star Life. And just check it out. We've got a lot of footage there, a lot of programs and reels. Arnold, our marketing guy, has done just an incredible job. So if you're a visual person, check it out.
I love the YouTube show. I'm an avid listener of the podcast, as I've mentioned before, and I'm slowly getting over to the YouTube side to keep an eye on the video as well, and so having a good time watching that there. Yeah,
if you didn't catch last week's show, go check it out. Rocket was awesome. Man, he said some things. Did you listen to that?
Mm-hmm.
He said some things that were just so profound. For parents to hear, for kids to hear. And he talked about this moment where he said it set him back 7 years. This moment where he was the prime receiver and they had this numbering system in the huddle where basically it was all about really getting the football to the hot hand. That was their offensive coordinator strategy. And he said, he was the number one guy. He was hot. He was having an incredible game. And because he felt a little bit guilty that he had a fat rookie contract and he was doing well, and others who had been in the league weren't doing as well as him, he realized, I'm a people pleaser. And so in the huddle, he looked across the huddle at another receiver and said, you take my spot. You take the key spot. He said, I gave away, and he called it his birthright. It's so interesting. It's kind of dramatic, but it's a really good point. Do not give away what's rightfully yours.
That was very interesting to hear. Because honestly, getting to know Rocket a little bit at our golf open this year, I can totally see that. It makes sense why I can see he's that kind of dude, and not just in front of cameras or in front of, public moments. That's just him. And when he was explaining that story, I was like, man, that is in a competitive scene even, it's wow, it was very interesting. And it's the repercussions of that, right, for him were tough. So
because it's so interesting, and it's almost countercultural to hear that, but I totally agree with what he's saying. We have pacified leadership, and we've looked down on competition. It's the weird cultural phenomenon that's taking place right now. And the reality is we need to encourage our boys, our girls, our young men, our young women to understand, like, we teach them identity. We teach them to be a leader. But at the same time, there's a lot of messages saying, well, be careful and don't be pushy. It's like, no, step into your rightful place. And when you have a mission, when you have a dream and a goal, don't back down. Have conviction and don't give that up for anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and the part of leadership too that's so undervalued is, and I don't know if, it's the sign of a great leader to me is somebody that elevates those around him, right? So like obviously like you can be great at one thing, but like how do you, when someone works for you or someone is a teammate of yours, like a true leader doesn't just show them and guide them like, hey, lead by example, right? Is what everybody says all the time. Okay, great, but like, how are you leading that's actually pushing that teammate or that person to be better, right? And that's an aspect of that too that I think is undervalued.
It's huge. All right, so let's dive in. Do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
I can start. Whichever way you want this to go.
You start.
You're the host. Okay. I came up with look. I want to start this by saying, like, anytime I get a chance to talk to Seth, like I coach Seth, I love his the way his viewpoints and the way he challenges you to think and that's why 5-star is such an impact, right? So I value this tremendously. So I almost took this as like, all right, this is my moment to ask you how to parent my kids, And so
awesome. Thank you for the kind words, by the way.
My first I have two that are kind of similar. So like I have young kids. I have a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 11-month-old, soon to be 1-year-old. So we're in the thick of it right now in terms of just everything's kind of hard, right? Parenting is just hard, and if parenting isn't hard, I don't know if you're necessarily doing it right. If parenting's easy, so I guess my long-winded way of saying, like, my 4-year-old pushes boundaries. That's what kids do, right? How do you deal with behavioral problems with kids, and more specifically, like when your kid misbehaves in a way that they would never do it in front of you, but they would do it, like they go to school and they act a certain way that they would not act that way in front of you, right? How do you teach that and manage that? That happened to me this week, by the way.
Okay. Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend.
I love the transparency. Man, parenting, just first of all, I want to acknowledge the truth of what you're saying. Parenting is the hardest thing I've ever done. I mean, I tell people, like, being a part of the founding of 5-star 19 years ago, it has been really, it's been hard going through recessions, going through people not knowing who you are, having to earn and build your brand from the ground up. It has been hard, but parenting is the hardest because everything is always in flux, no matter what age. You might master one moment with a kid, and then a year turns and they're in a different world. And then all kids I have 3 boys, so it's always changing. So it's the hardest thing in the world. And I think you're right. Parenting it's exhausting. It is tiring. It's so satisfying. It's so fulfilling. But it is, I love, and I'm going to go back to Rocket, because Rocket mentioned how he had this vision because he was talking to his friends back in Jersey when crack was coming in. They were talking about how bad things were. And he was like, man, how did I avoid the pitfalls of that? And he went back to this vision he had of this woman, this ancestor, praying. And there was this open field, and that field really, on my interpretation, it represented, he said it was all like plowed and it was prepared for planting. And there's all these trees that were other ancestors that had gone before that were protecting that garden, that had built this hedge, this protection around the garden. And I think when I think about parenting, I mean, every kid, our kids right now, they are this garden that all the soil is tilled up and everything they're experiencing is going into that soil. And so what I always, encourage parents to think about is, what do you want to intentionally plant into your kids? And because we hear this, that there's so many styles of parenting, right? And so when you're dealing with a parent or a child who is acting a different way, not under your supervision than they are with you, what you're talking about is you're like, okay, there's something in that soil that you want to make sure it's a small weed. How do we uproot that and plant the right thing in that behavior? That's what we're getting after. And we got to take a quick break, and I'm going to come back and try to dive into that, give you my best answer right after this.
Did you know that you can bring the values, lessons, and mindsets Coach Seth discusses on the 5-Star Life podcast to your local community? Schools are searching for programs and content that work. Just a simple introduction to your teacher or principal could be a game changer in your community. Inquire at 5starlife.org and someone from our team will be in touch.
Welcome back to the 5-Star Life Show. I'm your host, Coach Seth, and I am joined in studio with our Director of 5-Star Life Basketball Operations, Coach Brae Beatles. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Brae just asked me a great question. He asked me a parenting question. What would you do if you had a child who was acting inappropriately, not under your supervision, but outside your supervision? How do you deal with those things? And discipline is tough. One of the things that we want as parents, I think the goal, as I talk to parents, is you want the reverse of that. You want your kids to be the most unruly and under your supervision so you can correct it. And then when they're in public, you want them to be the most respectful, right?
Yep.
And so this comes back to like philosophies of disciplining kids, which is a huge hot topic in today's culture because there's all kinds of research to back up wherever you stand.
Yep.
It's not all equal in my opinion, but there's something to back up every parenting style. And it used to be, don't spank your kids. Before that, it was definitely spank your kids. There's all these different roller coaster rides we've been on when it comes to parenting disciplines. However, the thing I would encourage you and your bride to do is have a conversation about what is the reality? There's a book, I forget the name of it. It might be called Reality Discipline. We read a lot of parenting. I tried to read, when I was your age, I tried to read a parenting book about every year just to help me. I mean, think about this. We get these kids from the hospital, we take them home, and I mean, you get more information and there's more helpful books and manuals when you buy a phone or a camera. Shoot, anything. It comes with information.
Yeah.
They send you home with the baby and a pat on the back.
Diapers, maybe.
Yes.
Well, and to add to that, and not to cut you off, it's like the only book we had was What to Expect When You're Expecting. Like everybody reads when you're having your first kid, and then you're at the hospital and you go home and that's it.
Yeah.
I think reading. I mean, that's
we're done expecting. It's here. Now what?
Yeah. Yes.
So, but in that book, it talks about this philosophy that me and my wife adopted and this helped us a lot be on the same page, because reality discipline is allowing whatever they did to have a natural consequence. So we tried to stay away from like punishment.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of punishment.
Sure.
But disciplining them appropriately in a way that they're going to recognize like the impact this is going to have in their life. So when it comes to, outside of our sphere of influence when they're with somebody else, how they act. We wanted to make sure that when they came back, if we heard about it, that whatever was done, it matched the seriousness of what happened so that they wouldn't want to do it again. And the other issue I see with parents today is we try to parent 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds like they're adolescents. And like they can really reason and they have all the executive faculties that young adults have, and they just don't.
Yeah.
So there is something so important that happens in this foundational stage that you're at of making sure there are some real simple but very practical pain points that make sense.
Yep.
Because you can talk to them all day. I mean, I watch parents in supermarkets, their kids are throwing a fit, and they're talking to them, and I'm just like, listen, Mom, you mean really well, and you have a heart of gold, but your kid is going to be a monster if that's how you parent them through this stage.
Yes.
So we always, this is a hot topic, but I believed that there was a place for a physical discipline.
Sure.
That's where I was at.
Mm-hmm.
There were certain things that very limited, some things that are foundational. You never spank or discipline physically in a way that's near or even borderline abusive.
Sure.
So it's never done in anger. It's never done even in frustration. It's none of those things because we don't want the kids getting confused with what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some things that if there's an issue, it's like, okay, this might be worthy of this being removed from their life. There's got to be, again, physical can be part of it. Often it's a toy, it's a privilege, it's something. It's finding the pain point that at a young age they can recognize like, oh, this is really bad.
Sure.
Right.
Well, and even something like just giving them the message that you're ultimately in control. Like physically, you can obviously cross the line, but just something like just grabbing them and making sure that they understand, like, hey, we're in control here, right? And like I'm not physically harming you,
right?
But sometimes that's like that it clicks in their brain. It's like, oh wait, I'm not as immune as I might think, right? Or I'm not in as much control as I think, and it's, you can 100% do that without beating your kid, right? And that's obviously not what you want to do.
So Saturday night we had some friends over to watch the game, a Notre Dame game, and I watched this play out. 3-year-old girl, she is adorable, cute little girl, dynamic personality. She's brilliant. She's persuasive. She's obviously, the next thing that comes with this at 3 years old is manipulative because that's what kids do. I mean, every parent knows your kids, all of our boys made a run to be the CEO of the home. They all wanted to take control.
Yep.
They all want to manipulate. It's human nature.
Well, that's what guys want to do, right?
Get what you want.
Yep.
And so I watched this girl. She was not getting what she wanted. We have this little trampoline that she was jumping on, and she was having some kind of a asthma, just a little coughing. So they settled down and said, hey, you can't jump anymore. Well, she wanted to get on the thing, and he just grabbed her and had her sit right next to her on the couch. And she just fought it. She like got stiff as a board to try to get out from his arm that was kind of wrapped around her. And it was not a controlling, it was just kind of a comforting, like, I got, just sit here for a little bit, let your brain come down. And she fought it. And she tried to squirm out. And I watched, he just kept his arm, he just squeezed her a little tighter, and he was very calm, very nice, like, no, we're just going to stay here. Mm-hmm. And she squeezed, she tightened up again and tried to get out and said, nope, you're going to sit right here. He was very calm. It was just letting her know, like, no, you can do that, but it's not going to work.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great parenting. He didn't get ticked. He didn't let her have her way. He wasn't so worried about what I was, the bystander.
Sure.
I mean, that's the other thing as parents, we get embarrassed. And so we don't do the best thing for our kids. We do what we do to save face.
Sure.
And so we do things on the spot. And sometimes conversations, I think it's going back to your wife and saying, okay, this is serious. This is an issue. He is disrespecting someone else in a classroom. We need to bring an end to this. you two need to talk about what the repercussion is and find the pain point in their life so that they can connect it to reality. Because kids at that stage, if there's not a pain point, they won't get it.
Yep.
They'll think it's not a big deal.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And we see that. I mean, 4 is like, and I've done a lot of research on this, but I've a huge difference between my 4-year-old and 3-year-old in terms of having an understanding of right and wrong. Right. And he's to the point where, I mean, he's going to be 5 here in a month or 2. And, he's really to the point where you can find those, right? But it's like, well, what's the, okay, like what he did isn't necessarily like egregious, but it's just like disrespectful, right? So like, okay, well, what is the pain point like that equals that? It's kind of like that's hard to find as well, right? And yeah.
And so in me and my wife's parenting style, there were some things that were egregious, not too many, but lying, that's an egregious offense.
Yep.
I don't care if it's a small lie, a big lie, it doesn't matter. If you lie, that breaks trust. So things that break trust were a big deal. And then defiance or disrespect, like that rebellious spirit or attitude, that was a big deal. Why are those the two most egregious things? Because those are the things that will lead to the destruction of that child. If you can't learn how to be disciplined, if you can't take leadership from authority, and if you don't respect authority in adults, you're going to have a problem in life. And if you are deceptive, you're going to have a problem in life. We'll leave it at that for now. I got to take another quick break. We'll come back with more right after this. Remember, like this video, this show, share it with a friend. We'll be right back.
Five Star Life is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to changing the face of culture by changing kids' mindsets. Since 2005, we've impacted hundreds of thousands of lives thanks to the generous support of individuals, small businesses, corporations, and foundations. Are you interested in helping Five Star Life grow into all 50 states? With your donation or introduction, you can help bring Five Star Life to your community, school, and state. Go to fivestarlife.org and send us an email today. That's FIVESTARLIFE.org.
Welcome back to the 5 Star Life Show. I'm your host, Coach Seth, and I am joined in studio with our Director of 5 Star Life Basketball Operations, Coach Brae. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Having a fun conversation here. Just having Brae ask me some questions. First one was that helpful at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
In one of the biggest challenges and things that parents have got to do is it's then making sure husband and wife are on the same page with those things.
Yeah.
And when they're not, that's when things can really become a problem. So it's like having conversations beforehand about how you're going to go about those things is huge.
That's super important. And our situation, like we obviously talk about those things, but like you can't talk about them enough.
Yeah.
Honestly. And because there's always a situation that comes up and you're like, oh, we haven't reviewed that. Or, it's just like it's ever evolving door of communication that you have to have and talk through those things. And that kind of leads in, I don't want to ask too many questions in a row, but that kind of leads into my next question for you. And this is this is like something personally that I personally deal with. And it's not a complaint. Because like I love obviously what I do and what we do is for kids and to help others. But, sometimes I feel like, I'm giving everything I have to everyone else, right? Other kids, teams, whoever I can help in those moments, I feel like I'm doing that. But then, I get home at night and I'm ready to hey, I want to watch the Sunday night football game or, whatever it is. I want to have a moment to myself, right? But it's like, because we work kind of odd hours sometimes, it's like, well, in those moments is probably when I should be giving everything I have to my own family. And sometimes I struggle with that. So I don't know if you have any advice and again, I'm not complaining because I love it, but the people I should be giving everything to, sometimes I'm not motivated, but I'm like, my energy is just gone from giving it to others.
Sure. This is something that, this is a leadership a servant leadership issue, and there's actually a clinical term for it, compassion fatigue. It happens with school teachers, educators, people that work with kids, people that work with the elderly, people that work anywhere in the service industry. Compassion fatigue is a real thing where when you're always on, you're always giving, and people are always taking from you. It's like, how do you replenish that supply? That's super important. I think there's a couple things I would suggest. One is because you have the replenishment of your energy. That's one issue. And then you have when you're always in give mode and serving mode, you come home, your haven, that's also a place you have a responsibility to serve and give to. So a couple things. First, if we talk about kind of separating work and family, and you're doing that really well at a high level here at 5-Star, but for your family, you're in this phase where when you have 3 kids under 4, you're like, it's just, trust me, anybody out there that has kids, you can relate, but I don't know many people that have 3 kids under 4. That's a tight window. So that is an intense grind. So everybody that's been in that category understands that just your survival mode a little bit, physically.
So it feels like.
And so, how can I say this? A lot of parents would just say, just hold on. Like, that's not what you want to hear, but just hang in there because it's going to get brighter. But in the meantime, it's just so much about it being intentional with your time, right? Knowing and figuring out and navigating, because you're in the middle, you have an 11-month-old now, so you're kind of in a groove now. You're probably in a little better groove. It's now building those pieces in of knowing what your limitations are and knowing how much can I give without getting burned out. I don't want to go there anymore. That's a bad cycle because that can take a while to get out of. So how can I manage my time to make sure I'm not losing all my energy so that I can't give any to my family and that I'm no good for anybody? And so it really does come down to self-awareness of really evaluating, what do I need to do? Is it working? For me, it's always been, for me, everybody's different. This is me, Coach Seth. I have to get up and work out or spend quiet time. Both are and. If I start my day just running and gunning, I don't like to start my day that way. It's not best for me because I start kind of behind. When I ground myself and I get a workout in and I work out my soul, my spirit, my faith, and I'm prepared for that, it's amazing how me starting and going into the storm of the day, how I have this, I don't know, it's kind of weird, but I almost have like boundless energy.
Yeah.
It's almost like I have like this, hard to explain, but it's almost like I have this overflow that I don't leave the end of the day. So like yesterday, I got home at, I don't know, 8 o'clock. So, I started early and went till 8 o'clock, and I didn't come home like exhausted and just have nothing to give. And I think for me, it's because I know who I am. I know what I need, and I know what sources I need to energize me and keep me going. And then the second part, you think about pouring into your family. There's going to be, if you take some time to think about this, there's some things that will come to you that you don't want to do that are basically saying the wrong message to your family. And I haven't perfected this. I'm still in the journey. Okay. But one thing I learned is like, I don't want to come home and be on my phone. When I come home, I don't want to be working. So I rarely take phone calls. I rarely do work at home. There's times where I know I have a big project, something to do where it slips in, but I try to be fully present wherever I am. That helps me a lot. I know some people are maybe better at doing all of that together, but most people I know that try to mix it, their kids don't, they feel like, later on, but nobody's home.
Yeah.
So create some boundaries. And I made a choice that I was never going to walk into my house on my phone, rarely on a call. I'll sit in my driveway for 45 minutes on a call. Yeah. But I won't bring it inside the house.
Sure.
Because when I'm done, I'm coming in. And when I hit that door, what I want everybody to know is like, I'm home. And I'm trying to disarm and to dismantle all the stuff from the day so that when I come in, I'm about Kobe, I'm about Jordan, I'm about Blaze, I'm about Sarah. Yeah. Whether they always feel that way, I don't know. Yeah. That's my goal.
Sure.
And that's where my focus is. Sure.
Yeah. And I think about like, if somebody, I think I can do a decent job of analyzing a situation and helping myself through some of those, like mentally sometimes. Right. But like, sometimes I sit there and I try to convince myself, man, if somebody else was asking you these things, like your answer would be, well, I hope that the things that you're doing are a great example for your kids and your family. And like what you're doing is just natural. It's like, that's you. It's like, that's a good example. That's leading your kids and your family. But it's also like, how do you convince yourself that that's really what you're doing? Right. And I think I heard a coach say once, hey, my kids didn't volunteer to share dad, but they share their dad, you know? So it's like, and I think about that when I coach kids all the time and like with my kids, and it makes me feel like, man, I have to go home. And when Theo asked me to hit golf balls in the backyard, like I have to do it, you know? And it's like, cause I also want to do it.
Right.
But I also want to be able to not like, be like, I just need 5 minutes, dude, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, but there's nothing wrong with taking 5 minutes either. There's nothing wrong. I know parents that literally when they come in, husband and wives, they come in, they spend 10 minutes together. Just send a message to the kids that this is the most important relationship in the home. They have to talk through things. They want to connect. They want to say hello, and then we're next. So there's creating an order. I'm not saying that's how me and my wife have done it, but there's different things you can do. A great book. Lewis Upkins, a friend of ours, wrote a book called Treat Me Like a Customer. He's a consultant, a major consultant. And he realized he was treating his clients better than he was treating his family. So the whole book of the premise is like, my wife just said, I wish you'd treat me like a customer. He was like, ouch. And so there's some helpful little things that if we just tweak our mindset, we know how to do this. But it's just making some real clear decisions on what we're going to do, what we're not going to do. And then the energy thing, I think in your phase, figuring out how do you capture energy, what replenishes you, because that's what makes the whole thing go. Yeah. All right. If this has been helpful, I encourage you to go and share this with a friend. We'll be right back after this.
5 Star Life offers year-round programs for kids at our 350-acre training facility that we call Summit. These programs focus on 3 core components. First, each program includes lessons from our curriculum that targets kids' mindset. Secondly, each program teaches a skill like equine, archery, blacksmithing, basketball, fishing, boating, and many more. Thirdly, our programs connect kids to mentors we call coaches who are trained to help kids live a 5-star life. Go to 5starlife.org to learn more or sign up your kids.
Welcome back to the 5 Star Life Show. Last segment here with Coach Brae Beatles, our Director of Basketball Operations. We're having a great conversation. Really, this has become the show just about family and about work-life balance and how to stay engaged and keep our energy up.
Yeah.
So you were just on the break, you were mentioning like, a part of your energy problem is just starting to work out again, getting on that routine.
Yeah, I mean, I look, I'm an athletic guy. Like I used to be in the grind of the athletic grind or athlete grind, if you will, basketball player. You know, I know that the solution or a big part of the solution is, dude, wake up 45 minutes early, go on a 20-minute run, take a shower, wake your kids up. You know, like that's and you'll have more energy doing that than if you slept an extra hour, right? And you know. But the balance of that then is like, okay, well, you go to work all day, you spend time in the gym, or you do these other things, and you get home at 9 o'clock at night. And it's like, okay, you get home, you're like, okay, this is my time. My kids are in bed from 9 to midnight. Like, this is my time. You know, like I can watch a show, I can eat cookie dough on the couch, I can, whatever I want to do, my guilty pleasures during that time. In reality, I should go to bed at 10 o'clock. Or 9:30 and wake up at 5:30 and get a run in or something, you know. Right. But getting yourself to like, okay, in what you feel like your time is, Now I got to give up some of that again to give myself time in the morning to get a workout in or whatever it is, right? Maybe I could go on around 9 p.m. I don't know. Probably not the best solution, but it's life, and it's hard.
It is life. It's hard, but it's so rewarding. So some of these disciplines and habits that you're forming right now with your family and your kids and your routines are so huge. So, I remember those days where you're just like, you come home and you're tired, but you've got, for me, it was 3 boys that they're waiting and they want to wrestle.
Yeah.
Like that's what they want. They want to grab dad. They want to play with dad. And, it is such a beautiful thing. But I'm telling you, as you do those things with your with your kids, you have boys and a girl.
Mm-hmm.
But as you do those things, we're talking, you have, you are planting seeds that will come back and they will energize you later on. So I'm in a phase where teenage kids, it's different. It's not the physical demand, they don't necessarily, they don't want to come home and wrestle with me. They don't necessarily want to do anything with me.
Yeah, they don't want to hurt you now.
Exactly. So I'm now in this different phase where, but like I come home, you know what I'm looking forward to when I come home? I'm like, man, I hope I get to connect with my kids. And I hope we get some moments to is everybody gonna be here for dinner tonight? And all of the seeds that I've planted early on, now those seeds are actually feeding me. It's the craziest thing. It's like last night I get home from work and my wife, who's amazing, she makes dinner, and so I get home at 8 and she has dinner on the table, which was, I'm not saying it's like that every time when I come home, but it was like, and they're all there, and it's just like the conversation is so rich, and they're just ripping on me. This is the phase I'm in, where now I used to make fun of them and rip on them, and now they just give it back. And it is just, we laugh, we argue, we debate, and it's just, it energizes my soul. So the seeds you plant early on will create the relationship where there's banter and they learn how to do all that, and it's so rich and rewarding. So you're in the seed sowing business right now, and it is work.
It's work. Look, I mean, when you told me, when you said, hey, you got to just keep getting through it, like I feel like I've said that before to, like we're in the moment, we're in the heat of it. I'm like, Alexis, we just got to get through it. Like, we just got to keep pushing. We got to get through it. It's like, I feel like that's terrible advice, but like, it's kind of like it, and I'm not saying you're giving me bad advice. Sure. But like when I say that to her, I'm like, God, there's nothing behind that other than that's just the reality, I guess, Does that make sense? It does. And every veteran parent will tell you, like, the hardest thing in life is doing the right thing over and over and over when you don't see an immediate result. That's the hardest thing. That's what you tell your athletes all the time. Yep. Like, believe in you. I hear you tell them this all the time. Trust the process. Mm-hmm. And if you will evaluate your process and keep improving your process and making tweaks in the process, but it's about those daily repetitions. So you're on a great path. Great path. We'll see. Oh yeah, it's going to be good. By the way, if you're listening to this program, and this has been helpful, would you do us a favor? We just launched this on YouTube, and we're trying to build our audience because most people use YouTube. Would you go to our YouTube page? It's the 5-Star Life YouTube page, and share this with a friend, like it, subscribe to it so you don't miss an episode. You can do the same thing on whatever podcast stream you're listening to, but that helps us a ton as we try to grow our market, because this is a great exposure tool to help people understand what's at the heart and core of 5-Star. So by you sharing this is like an easy way for you to, basically you're recruiting volunteers, you're fundraising just by sharing this with people, because it exposes people to who we are. So thank you in advance for that. The other thing is, I would say, if you like this show and you have questions like Coach Brae is asking, and you're like, you and your wife have an issue with your kids or with a school issue, or you're a teacher, and you're like, Coach Seth, do you have advice for this kid situation?
go to our website and hit the contact page and send us an email asking questions. We'd love to address some of those things online and on the show. Anything else? We got like 3 minutes.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. I've never asked you this. Well, actually, I haven't really asked you any of these questions. I was curious, we talk life's about learning and life lessons, right? And we're teaching these kids about life lessons, and they may not be knowing them, that they're learning, those as we go. But I was curious if you had a life lesson that you had to learn the hard way.
Oh boy, the hard way.
Did you get in trouble for anything growing up?
What did I learn the hard way? Yeah, I got in trouble. Let's see. What did I have to learn the hard way? I honestly, so my dad, adoptive father, he's dad, but he lived the crazy hippie wild. He was a rebel. He learned the hard way. So because he learned the hard way, I got to learn the easy way. Because he would just tell us stories all the time about how he learned the hard way and some of the ridiculous things he did. and he's got this dynamic personality, and I got to learn from watching him because he's just kind of out there. Yeah. And so I learned a lot from him because I had a dad that was kind of, I heard John Maxwell say this years ago. Again, and we say this in 5-star, like leaders go first. Leaders go first. John Maxwell says, actually, you don't want to go first. You want to go second. Like the explorers that explored, North America, you don't want to be the first one. Those guys died.
Yeah.
That the first mushroom eater, like they died.
Yeah.
It was the next guy that learned from the guy that ate the wrong mushroom. That's who I want to be. And so my philosophy in life has always been like, I want to be the guy that goes further faster because I'm learning on the backs of other people. I'm trying to think about something I learned the hard way. I mean, through starting 5-star, I had to learn so many things the hard way because when you're doing something unique and different, the only way is to try things and fail, but not like intentionally failing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. But as a kid, I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry. I need to think about that one, come up with a good story.
I mean, it's unless you've done something that really jumps out, like that's probably a tough question to ask. I learned not to trust payphones once. Ones that allegedly didn't work. It's a funny story. Probably don't have time to share it right now, but honestly, it helped me learn of discipline, and like you kind of mentioned with your dad, like I learned a lot from my mom of how to raise, like the way my mom raised me was like how I want to raise my kids, and like I looked at the mistakes that I had made as I was growing up, every kid does, and how she handled it, and like how some of the decisions that she made put an instant stop. She found the pain point immediately and was like, okay, that's it. That's not happening again.
Brilliant.
So like I learned a lot that way.
It's good. I learned the hard way how a lion pees. I got peed on by a lion at the zoo.
There you go.
That was awful. If they start backing up towards you and the tail goes up, it's happening. Thanks for tuning into this show. Brae, thanks for joining us. You're always a great guest to have on. Again, please like this, share this, subscribe to this. We'll see you next show.
At 5-Star Life, we are changing the face of culture through education and sports by changing the most important piece of a human being's life, their mindset. If you are interested in being a part of our journey, please visit 5starlife.org for more information on volunteer and donation opportunities.